long is painful. If it's not necessary, extend your stay a few more days, Markto advised. I have classes the day after tomorrow. No time to waste, Voldemort replied, sighing as he pressed deeper into the fortress. Markto watched him go with quiet admiration. Flitwick, still shivering, looked slightly ashamed, while Moody nodded in rare approval. Back on the first prison level, Voldemort assessed the 3 cloaked Dementors remaining. All seemed vaguely eager to leave, unsure where to go, only that they wanted out. Perhaps outside happiness and nourishment was abundant. Staying meant starvation. Any favorites? Markto asked as he delivered Voldemort's meal. They're all the same. Hard to judge obedience, Voldemort replied, eating. I want to explore deeper inside. Those Dementors are wilder. Be careful, Markto warned. Voldemort nodded and asked, curiosity in his tone, why do prisoners deeper inside seem less numb than those near the outside? Over time, they've lost all happiness to feed on. What remains is pain and madness, so they still look human. Those outside, Markto glanced at a vacant-eyed prisoner, are in transition. Once their happiness fully drains, they'll be easier to manage. Voldemort forced a smile. It was inhumane torture. After eating, Markto said his goodbyes. Voldemort pressed onward to communicate with uncloaked Dementors. These were wilder. When told that obedience meant freedom, their thoughts repeated. Go out, eat, go out, eat. Like humans craving food, spirits desired sustenance. The unclothed ones clearly had the advantage. Voldemort rejected all Dementors focused solely on such primal urges. He wanted a responsible boss. For the training grounds, not a death sentence for the students. He inspected each, taking chocolate breaks, late into the night, until finally he found one that was different. Its intentions were vague, but carried an emotion none of the others had. Restraint. Go, obey, restrain. Its repeated thoughts mirrored the cloaked Dementors, but with an added restraint beyond those on the first level. Can you really hold back your instincts? Voldemort asked, listening closely. Go, obey, restrain. Go, obey, restrain. The same phrases echoed repeatedly, leaving Voldemort conflicted. Rest for now. I'll check again tomorrow. It's late, Markto appeared. He's different, Voldemort hesitated. I'll try Legilimens soon. If anything goes wrong, interrupt my magic. Markto's eyes widened, trying to stop him, but Voldemort remained resolute and eventually convinced his junior. I'm going to explore your thoughts with magic, Voldemort said slowly. If you don't connect magically or feed on my happiness, I'll remove you. Repeating the phrase several times, he finally raised his wand. Legilimens. The spell struck the Dementor, and Voldemort immediately sensed its thoughts. At that moment, he felt his happiness being drained, but slowly. Restrain, don't feed. Restrain, don't feed. Those words repeated endlessly in the Dementor's mind. Voldemort was impressed. It really was controlling its instincts. Phew! Breaking the magic, he exhaled deeply. Despite the restraint, the Dementor had still taken a considerable portion of his happiness. It restrained itself? Markto asked, even more amazed. Looks like it. Voldemort nodded, then pulled a ticket from his pocket and handed it to the Dementor. Keep this. I might call on you later. He's already the best choice, I think, Markto said, reading Voldemort's expression that he was still searching. He quickly addressed his senior. Responsible for the students, Markto. They're children. I must find the most obedient one. Voldemort's words earned Markto's deep respect. Without hesitation, he agreed and even volunteered to help. Let professors handle professor things, Markto. If something goes wrong, you can't take the blame, Voldemort said sternly. Don't let good intentions cause trouble or ruin your future. Markto realized his eagerness had been reckless. By the way, Markto, Voldemort continued, among these seasoned criminals, are there any more honest ones or easier to communicate with? What do you plan to do? Markto asked curiously. I want to ask them what problems arise from long-term contact with Dementors. Voldemort sighed. You know Hagrid is supposed to take care of this Dementor. I'm just asking on his behalf. Markto suddenly understood. Little Sirius, the one who looks more obedient. No, Voldemort said immediately. He betrayed Potter. He's a schemer, probably waiting for exactly this moment. Markto gave a thumbs up, wise as always, senior. Any other candidates? I don't mind crazy ones from before. They're at least genuine. But recently we need someone gentler, Voldemort asked again. Markto stroked his chin, then his eyes lit up. Sirius's cousin. I heard she was wild when she first arrived, But after I got here, she calmed down. After all, she's a woman. Voldemort frowned, thought it over, and reluctantly said, Then let it be her. For Hagrid's sake, we have to try. Markto gave another thumbs up. Senior, you're noble. Chapter 67. Bella, Bella! Clack! A sudden noise came from the cell door. Bella looked up, puzzled. She had heard whispers outside before, but they never caught her attention. Enforcers appeared regularly. She was used to it. But the sound of a lock turning was new. Years lost in Azkaban's endless darkness had blurred her sense of time. Creak! The door screeched open sharply. Bella's eyes widened as someone stepped inside. A recent visitor? A new enforcer? Or here to move her to another cell? She stared at the figure warily. The person didn't move, just stood at the doorway, staring straight at her. Senior Quirrell, are you all right? The voice came from the corridor, distant but clear. I'm fine. Markto, extend the intervals between checks, otherwise I can't communicate with her, the figure answered, tossing the keys aside and shutting the cell door from the inside. Click. With the door closed, they were alone. Neither spoke. Bella cautiously stepped back. Long years without sunlight had sharpened her nerves. She wanted to speak but couldn't bring herself to go first. The figure's expression flickered with complex emotions, but Bella, starved of contact, couldn't read it. Huff! He sighed deeply, as if shedding a great weight. She didn't understand. After staring at her so long, he sighed. What did it mean? Was he preparing the Dementor's kiss? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. She still feared death, especially now. Uncertain if her master had returned, she was sure he wouldn't die. Yet she had lost all chances to serve him. The thought crushed her heart. She lowered her head, sorrow flooding her face. Bella. A gentle call echoed inside the cell. Bella's brows twitched. She thought she heard someone calling her, with her master's voice, full of tenderness and joy. Bella, Bella. 2 more calls, the same tone but layered with complicated emotion. Master, is it because I'm dying that you're using magic to say goodbye from afar? She thought sadly. Despite the pain, a flicker of happiness rose. She knew her master was alive. No one remembered how many years had passed or how much joy the Dementors had stolen. She had long believed she'd never be happy again. Yet unexpectedly, Master, I'm leaving now, she whispered softly as if bidding farewell. Suddenly a hand reached out, threading through her tangled hair and brushing against her cheek. Just like before, Master always liked stroking me when I rested on his lap. Bella closed her eyes, savoring the touch, until a voice cut through her reverie. Bella, look at me. Startled, she jerked her head up, seeing the stranger in his hand. Anger flared. She wanted to strike this intruder, but then she froze. Those eyes, deep, full of desire and pride. Master! Her voice trembled, uncertain but daring to speak. Of course. Otherwise, who else would touch your face like this? The man smiled warmly. His face, unfamiliar and unattractive at first, slowly shifted before her tear-filled eyes into the form she knew. Her mouth quivered, her throat tight, ready to sob loudly. But a subtle, silent spell fell, muting everything except soft whimpers. She ignored it, springing up suddenly, clutching her master tightly, crying like a child, then laughing wildly, her entire being consumed by a whirlwind of emotion. Bella, Bella, it's all right. It will pass. Calm down. I don't have much time, the stranger said, his voice gentle yet commanding. Master, Master, I miss you day and night, every moment, every second. Sob. Bella buried her face in his chest, crying, not for herself but for him. She was certain this was her master. Yet his appearance told her that his life had been far from easy. He must have suffered greatly these past years. If only she had been there, she would have spared him such hardship. Unable to hold back her sorrow, Bella convulsed with sobs. Calm down, Bella. I need you calm? His voice came again, sterner this time. Her tears seemed frozen in time, but her wide eyes shimmered with moisture. I obey, Master. What do you wish me to do? She asked, restraining the storm inside and speaking sincerely. Calmness, that is what you can do for me, Voldemort said softly. Very well, Master. Bella stood steady, though reluctant to release his hand. This is a gift I prepared for you, Bella, for the upcoming Christmas, he continued, pulling a book from his waist. A copy of detailed transfiguration studies. I love it, Master. I will cherish it as I do my life. Listen carefully, Voldemort interrupted her rising excitement. This book details methods for learning animagus transformation. Master it. and you can evade Dementors effectively. Bella's face lit up. Her master was still so powerful, so wise, always knowing exactly what witches and wizards needed. Also, hide it well. My current identity cannot yet be revealed, so don't let others find this book, Voldemort added quickly. I will, Master. Tonight I will finish reading and memorizing it. Tomorrow I will consume it, Bella said firmly. Voldemort paused, caught off guard. Consume it yourself, then. He replied dismissively. Do not use animagus to run away. In at most 3 years, at soonest 1 year, I will find a way to get you out. I understand, Master, but I want to do something for you. Anything. Voldemort had no task for her now, but one question remained. Where did you put Hufflepuff's cup? The vault, Bella answered promptly. Which vault? I need the exact number. Vault 572, Master. Good. I must leave now, Voldemort said, gently stroking her cheek again. If you insist on doing something for me. He paused, then continued. Make yourself beautiful again, my beloved girl. You know I'm drawn to appearances. I like the proud, noble aura you carry. Bella smiled and nodded. As you wish. Foolish, mad, cruel, fearsome, that is Bella. If I were Voldemort, I could not find a reason not to love her. She devoted her life entirely to him, without reserve. Among all the Harry Potter material, only this woman left Voldemort a child, a brave, tenacious girl named Delphi Riddle, also known as the Seer. Chapter 68. Hagrid's Patronus. Foolish, arrogant woman, Voldemort growled, stepping back and knocking on the cell door. Markto opened it. What's wrong? He asked. No need to explain. That stupid woman, he's been brainwashed by some mysterious person. The words mysterious person made Markto shudder. They've all been brainwashed. Forget it. I'll keep a closer eye on Hagrid's condition. If things get worse, he'll just need some chocolate, Voldemort said, retreating with Markto. Since the plan failed, there's no need to inform the headmaster, he added. We're back at school now, and Snape keeps pestering me. I don't want him gossiping about my incompetence. Understood, Senior, Markto nodded. He had no issue with that, and certainly didn't want Snape mocking his senior. He already knew about the clash from the incident with the injured Professor Flitwick. How are our house's students doing these days? Markto asked. Voldemort scolded the Ravenclaw students harshly, calling them unworthy of their house, then explained how he was improving their practical combat skills. Markto approved. After all, so few Ravenclaws became Aurors, and he was one of the exceptions. That left him lacking connections in the house. I'll encourage them to follow your path, Markto. Learned Ravenclaws, it's time to branch out into other fields, Voldemort said. Markto's eyes lit up. He had ambitions, especially after so long in Azkaban. With the right connections, he could have been transferred ages ago. They talked a while longer before Markto left. Voldemort tried to communicate with more Dementors, but soon departed himself. This place was no place for humans. By noon the next day, Voldemort set off with the chosen Dementor and the still ailing Professor Flitwick, naturally escorted by Moody. Dementors were dangerous, especially away from the Northern Sea Isle, so Moody's presence saved Voldemort a lot of trouble. By the time they returned to Hogwarts, the sun was setting. Good heavens, Flitwick, are you all right? Professor Sprout exclaimed. Let me take you to Madame Pomfrey. You look terrible. I was thinking the same. Thanks for helping, Sprout, Flitwick said weakly. What happened to him? McGonagall asked as Flitwick departed. He used legilimency on a Dementor, reckless Flitwick. I never knew he was that rash, Moody said before Voldemort could respond. Hope he's okay, Dumbledore murmured, eyeing the Dementor in the training grounds. And this one looks obedient. He restrains himself, Voldemort said. I tried legilimency on him. He controlled himself well and didn't harm me. Moody snorted in disbelief. Even though Markto had said the same, Moody wasn't convinced. If that's true, then he's a very obedient Dementor, Dumbledore said, approaching it with curiosity. Definitely less aggressive than the others. I'm letting you use magic. Don't hurt me. Voldemort muttered a few phrases, then, ignoring Dumbledore's caution, performed legilimency again. Some happiness was still drained, but the harm was minimal. Very obedient indeed. Perfect for students to practice spells on, Dumbledore smiled, winking at Voldemort. This Dementor? Moody hesitated, then stepped forward. How does he manage to be so obedient? At that moment, Moody drew his wand and fired legilimency, almost costing the aging ex-Auror half his life. He should have warned the Dementor first. Acting recklessly like that, can he really be an Auror? Voldemort complained to Dumbledore as Snape dragged Moody away. You can't take revenge just because he insulted your head of house, Kuro. Control your vendetta, or you'll become a true Slytherin, McGonagall teased. Slightly embarrassed, Voldemort shrugged it off. He knew why he was so talkative. Like Markto, he was searching for some happiness. Getting revenge feels good, just aimed at the wrong person. If it were Hagrid, he might have gotten a sympathetic response. Do you need a day off tomorrow? You don't look well, Dumbledore asked. No, Headmaster, Voldemort smiled. I'm strict with upper years. This state won't affect me. You're right, Kuro, but I'll be mourning the upper years tomorrow. Dumbledore joked, showing more humor than McGonagall, clearly understanding Voldemort's meaning. This Dementor's enclosure was set up rather hastily. Let's observe it for a while. If it proves viable, it'll need reinforcement, McGonagall said, puzzled by their laughter as she looked at the temporary housing. I'll be staying here most of the time, Professor, Hagrid said, arriving late but immediately asserting himself. I'll keep an eye on him. If he gets out of line, I'll use the Patronus charm. You'd better demonstrate it, Hagrid. I need to be sure you can handle this, Voldemort said with concern. Dumbledore and McGonagall also looked at Hagrid, sharing the same worries. All right, Hagrid nodded, raising his pink little umbrella, and said, Expecto Patronum. From the tip of the umbrella, streams of silver light shot out, quickly forming a gigantic eight-eyed spider. Voldemort was certain, in all his past and present lives, he had never seen such a massive Patronus. It was as tall as a 2-story building. Oh, Hagrid, when did you learn that? And why is it so huge? McGonagall asked, astonished. Quirrell told me his idea a long time ago. He said I should learn it. It might come in handy. Hagrid shrugged. He said it was difficult, but I picked it up right away. I guess it's because of the wand Quirrell gave me, that thing. He suddenly covered his mouth, but it was too late. The secret had been revealed. You actually bought him a wand? McGonagall exclaimed. If the Ministry finds out. McGonagall, Dumbledore interrupted calmly, it's just us here. None of us will say a word, right? McGonagall glanced at Dumbledore, then at Voldemort and Hagrid, and could only nod helplessly. You didn't master the Patronus charm just because of the wand, Dumbledore added. It's because of happiness. The more joy you have, the stronger and easier the magic is to learn, and you're the most optimistic, cheerful child I've ever met. Hagrid, you really are a big happy mouth, Voldemort laughed. When happiness is abundant, the Patronus grows large. Clearly, Hagrid's joy was like a roaring river, endless and mighty, hence his enormous Patronus. I haven't seen your Patronus yet, Quirrell, Dumbledore said suddenly. Voldemort rolled his eyes internally. No matter the time, behind those crescent-shaped glasses, suspicion was always present. Maybe Hagrid's performance was too impressive? Or the line, he told me long ago, sparked Dumbledore's doubts? Of course, the Patronus charm requires happiness, Voldemort said, still pondering. He raised his wand and cast Expecto Patronum. A silver-white eagle shot from his Yew Wand, very Ravenclaw in style. Dumbledore nodded with approval. McGonagall glanced over, and Hagrid let his 8-legged spider Patronus chase after the eagle. But Voldemort quickly withdrew his Patronus. Quirrell controlled the body, yet Voldemort still felt slightly uneasy. Their movements and aura weren't perfectly aligned. Since returning from Azkaban, Voldemort no longer locked himself in his office. The reason was simple. Nothing brought him more satisfaction than being around the lively, youthful students. Arbitrarily punishing students or docking house points became a reliable source of amusement. Except for Snape, the other professors hardly complained. The reason was obvious. Slytherin always lost the most points. Voldemort could not stand seeing the Slytherin students grinning foolishly in the halls. What do you do all day? Read a book? Practice magic? Learn something so you can serve your great Dark Lord better in the future? Beyond controlling his temper, Voldemort genuinely enjoyed the routine. At least progress on the restricted books accelerated. After all, pain couldn't harm those without joy. A few days passed, and everything seemed to be settling, when trouble struck unexpectedly. Late at night, Voldemort was still engrossed in the restricted text when a knock jolted him awake. Annoyed by his own temper, he rose angrily to open the door, only to find a little girl in pink pajamas standing there. Hermione. Up this late? What are you doing? Voldemort nearly blurted. Come to serve me, but stopped himself just in time. It's Harry, Professor. The girl's eyes brimmed with tears. Malfoy used a dark curse on him. He's badly hurt, bleeding nonstop. Voldemort froze. A dark curse? Are you even sure you can recognize that? Though uncertain, he immediately set off, wearing only a luxurious purple silk robe, hurrying toward the fourth-floor trophy room. Calm down, Hermione. Panicking won't help, Voldemort said, striding ahead while Hermione ran after him. Tell me exactly what happened. It's still about Neville's Remembrall, she explained rapidly. It was lost at lunch. Malfoy found it, and then the quarrel escalated. Malfoy challenged Harry to a duel, and Hermione tried to stop him but failed. Since the fat lady wasn't there, the Gryffindor common room door was locked, and Hermione had no choice but to follow. On the fourth-floor trophy room, Malfoy hadn't shown up, but Filch appeared. They hid in a nearby room and encountered the three-headed dog. Hermione recounted everything in detail. Hearing her story, Voldemort felt like one of the books had come to life, and he didn't understand why Malfoy was involved. The boy had been behaving very differently lately. Through Hermione's account, he pieced together the rest. Harry and his friends assumed Malfoy had stayed away, but it was actually an accident. They had arrived too early. The duel continued. The Sectum Sempra, Hermione's voice trembled. I heard him shout it, and then there was a Sectum Sempra? Voldemort stopped, surprised. Are you sure? I'm sure, she said, wiping her tears. It's just like Professor Snape's curse. Malfoy's eyes were just as venomous. Go find, he wanted to say Snape, since only 2 people could counter that curse. Malfoy himself, who cast it but might not know the counter curse, and Snape, its inventor. But how would Crumb know all that? So, go find the headmaster. He's in his office on the 8th floor, by the statue at the door. Shout, he'll hear you. Voldemort spoke quickly, seeing Hermione start to run upstairs. Stop, Hermione. He grabbed her and pointed. Go down to the 3rd floor. There's a shortcut straight to the 8th. It's faster. She nodded and ran, Voldemort calling after her. Faster! Harry's in danger! Urged on, Hermione sped up, but near the bottom she stumbled, hitting her head and bleeding, yet she didn't slow down for a second. Such a brave girl, Voldemort thought, then turned toward the trophy room. Harry, what's wrong? Harry. From afar, he heard Ron's terrified shout. Turning the corner, he saw Ron pressing against Harry's chest as blood continued to flow. Neville stood helpless nearby. Malfoy stood by, expressionless, his 2 cronies chuckling foolishly. Move aside, Ron. Voldemort drew his wand and approached. A 5-centimeter wound on Harry's chest bled steadily. His face was pale, eyes full of fear. Malfoy's magic must have been weak, Voldemort thought. The damage wasn't fatal, but the dark curse prevented the bleeding from stopping. Harry's reaction was exaggerated, likely because he had once nearly bled to death before. It's not serious, Harry. You'll be fine, Voldemort said, comforting him, then waved his wand. Heal quickly. Thankfully, the love-based magic didn't interfere with his spell. So much blood spilled over enemies wasted. What a cruel fate. Voldemort allowed himself a brief moment to reflect. Malfoy, do you know any healing spells? Seeing his magic was not enough, Voldemort turned to the boy. No, Professor, but I don't think the curse is fatal. His chest isn't the lethal spot. Malfoy's cold words earned Ron a glare, angry but powerless to harm. Voldemort glanced at Malfoy but detected no real emotion in the boy's eyes. This kid truly had a gift for mental block magic. Heal quickly, heal quickly, heal quickly. Facing a dark curse, Voldemort had no choice but to repeat the healing spell over and over. It helped somewhat, but clearly wasn't enough to reverse the damage. Bang! A flash of fire announced Dumbledore's arrival, clad in his purple robes, accompanied by his Phoenix and Hermione, who rubbed her forehead warily. Same outfit, Voldemort noted. How's the effect? Dumbledore strode forward, surveying the scene. Not good. It's a dark curse. My magic can't dispel it, Voldemort admitted, frustration in his voice. Oh, Harry! Professor McGonagall gasped, hurrying over, wand raised, joining Voldemort in casting healing spells. Even together, they made no breakthrough. Voldemort lowered his wand and left McGonagall to maintain the status quo. He turned to find Dumbledore studying Malfoy. The boy's face was impassive, but a ruthless edge lingered. He held his mental defenses even against Dumbledore. Though unbroken for now, how long could it last? Voldemort wondered. Your father shouldn't have taught you dark curses. Is this his way of taking revenge on me? Dumbledore's rare sharp anger cut through. The mental barrier wavered. Lucius played that well. Voldemort thought bitterly. Step aside. A large figure approached. After McGonagall moved aside, Snape waved his wand. Heal quickly, heal quickly, heal quickly. Harry's wounds began healing visibly faster. Snape had clearly modified the spell, turning it into a flawless countercurse. That cunning Snape, spreading the original curse but withholding the counterspell. No wonder he wasn't a good man. A new week began. Whether Voldemort could advance to the next recommendation spot depended on you, dear readers. Cheer him on! Chapter 70. Fair Punishment. Dumbledore sat sideways on the sickbed, flanked by Professors McGonagall and Snape. Voldemort leaned against a distant wall, while Filch lingered nearby, his sharp gaze sweeping the crowd, focused especially on several students at the center of attention. Whip them! Hang them up! Kids who break school rules deserve that! Filch muttered under his breath, each word drifting straight to Voldemort. This mute crank could sometimes be nastier than the purebloods. Sure enough, the ungrass must be corrected. That was unchanging truth. So, Dumbledore began, calm now, Miss Granger, your involvement here was entirely unexpected, wasn't it? Hermione nodded solemnly. She didn't feel she'd done wrong, but the guilty glance she cast at Voldemort betrayed a deeper story. Curious, Dumbledore shot a glance at Voldemort. Though unaware of any secret between them, he chose not to press further. Very well. I believe Miss Granger has made herself clear. Now, let's decide the punishment for these unfortunate students. Dumbledore turned to the two heads of house. The students belonged to them, so their input mattered most. None should escape punishment, McGonagall said firmly, like issuing a decree. Agreed completely, Snape added, ready to pounce. McGonagall glanced at him, then continued, but Malfoy deserves harsher punishment. He challenged someone to a duel and used an unforgivable. I don't think so. Snape interrupted immediately. There's no rule at Hogwarts forbidding unforgivable curses. If Potter knows such advanced magic, I believe. No, unforgivable curses are banned. McGonagall didn't back down, standing her ground like a cocky duelist. If children use dark magic too early, I cannot imagine their futures. They might end up as heads of house, like me. Snape dropped that line like a bombshell, freezing McGonagall mid-sentence. Voldemort watched Snape, surprised, but his eyes remained cold and deep, his occlumency intact. Was Snape unsettled because of the green eyes he saw while healing Harry? Voldemort wondered, not dwelling on Lily's death. Perhaps there's no need for you two to argue, Dumbledore said, noticing Snape's mood shift. He looked to Voldemort, redirecting the tension. Professor Quirrell, since you were first on the scene and teach defense against the dark arts, why don't you decide their punishment? No problem, Headmaster. Voldemort stepped from the wall and moved forward. He caught Filch muttering, "Whip them, Professor," but ignored it completely. 50 points deducted from both Gryffindor and Slytherin. That's settled. Snape bristled. There were 4 on their side, but only 3 on ours. Quirrell, you need to be fair. Yes, 4. I noticed Neville's almost invisible presence, Voldemort said, nodding at the overlooked boy. That's why I didn't dock points for Malfoy's unforgivable curse. Snape had no rebuttal and stayed silent. McGonagall hesitated, but ultimately remained quiet, perhaps considering Quirrell's punishment fair enough. Oh, and, Voldemort continued, drawing everyone's attention, when I sent Hermione to find the headmaster, she got a nasty bump on her head from being anxious, but she didn't waste a second. For her bravery, I'm adding 5 points to Gryffindor. Hermione blushed deeply, lifting her chin proudly higher than usual. Oh, and... The familiar gaze that had been on Hermione shifted back to Voldemort. The sharp looks from the other professors made him feel they expected him to finish his remarks quickly. Malfoy's use of an unforgivable curse is unacceptable, Voldemort began. But for a first year to have mastered such powerful magic, I have to give him 1 point. It's low, because unforgivable curses are wrong. Quirrell, McGonagall objected sharply, you're encouraging him to learn unforgivable curses. No, Professor, I do not endorse their use, Voldemort replied calmly. But his skill demonstrates his effort in defense against the dark arts. As the professor of that subject, I have the right to reward outstanding performance. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair. McGonagall seemed ready to argue again, but Dumbledore intervened. Both deductions and additions are acceptable, Quirrell, but the students still need detention. I think you should handle that as well. But Headmaster, my classes already run late every day. This detention won't be punishment for them. It will be punishment for me, Voldemort said sourly. He had no real interest in managing these troublemakers. If Hermione hadn't dragged him in, he would have stayed far away. Once when Dumbledore was away, he had encountered the Weasley twins on a night patrol. They looked dejected, but he walked on without a glance. Even from a distance, he heard their thanks. He hadn't stopped them, not out of fear, but out of laziness. Why stir trouble when he could spend that time studying magic and perfecting curses? That was far more appealing. 6 detentions each, 2 hours per session. The content is up to Quirrell. That's final. Dumbledore ignored Voldemort's protests. Turning to the heads of house, he added, "Take your students back to rest. They have classes tomorrow." Snape and McGonagall silently led the students away. Filch left disappointed, and Voldemort followed closely behind. "Crumb, wait a moment. I have something to ask," Dumbledore's gentle voice called from behind. Voldemort reluctantly turned. "There's a secret between you and Hermione that I need to know. After all, I am the headmaster." Closing the door, Dumbledore smiled. "Oh, I almost forgot." Without hesitation, Voldemort revealed Hermione and the others' actions. If it weren't for the detentions interrupting his thoughts, he would have done it willingly much sooner. Before the duel, they hid from Filch on the 4th floor, then encountered a 3-headed dog. "Ha ha! They nearly died of fright." Even now, Voldemort laughed at the memory of Hermione describing the terrified expression on her face. "Oh, they're already close?" Dumbledore's face lit up with joy. He made no effort to hide his thoughts from Crumb, showing trust. "Ah, you want them to break through?" Voldemort was surprised. "I thought it was meant to keep those in black away." "I can't find him," Dumbledore frowned, rubbing his temples. "He's hidden too deeply, leaving no clues." Voldemort shook his head helplessly. He was equally powerless. Though eager to help, he thought, "I can't betray myself. I have a decent relationship with myself, after all." Chapter 71, Malfoy's Hidden Meaning. Late that night, after handling the emergency, Dumbledore returned to his office. Exhausted, he sank into his chair, staring blankly at the cluttered desk. 2 papers on top were neatly arranged. The left sheet listed numerous Hogwarts students, with detailed notes beside each. Gemma Farley, distant relative, Thomas Harrison, suspected Death Eater. Harrison traveled through the Black Forest and later contacted Farley. No abnormalities detected at school, but possibility cannot be ruled out. The list was long, showing the immense effort Dumbledore had invested. The right sheet also listed many names, mostly marked cleared of suspicion, including Crumb and Snape. Beneath the neat sheets lay a pile of disorganized papers, some resembling mind maps, some family trees, brief letters about visits to the Black Forest, and lengthy daily records of suspects, all painstakingly documented. "Phew," Dumbledore sighed, pulling out a blank sheet and beginning to write an ornate script. "To the esteemed Hogwarts Board of Governors, last night, a troubling incident occurred involving first-year Draco Malfoy. Upon investigation, the dark curse originated from teachings by Lucius Malfoy. I must regard this as Malfoy's retaliation for being unable to expel a certain professor. I recommend convening a board meeting to discuss the matter and determine the school's response." Halfway through, he frowned, reread the letter, shook his head, crumpled the paper, and tossed it aside. He began again. "To the just and generous Hogwarts Board of Governors, it is imperative we discuss the issue of dark curses. Just last night, on the 4th floor of Hogwarts Castle, an incident occurred." The long night wore on. The century-old headmaster wrestled with how to write a letter that would win the most support. Amid revisions, his tall posture slowly slumped. Only Fawkes witnessed the quiet struggle. Dumbledore, the living legend revered by wizards and feared even by the Dark Lord, seemed omnipotent. Yet behind the facade lay countless hardships. Fate never favored the lazy, but for the diligent, it always offered greater care. "Did you hear? Harry Potter was beaten by Malfoy. More than that, he ended up in the hospital. Didn't you notice he skipped class today? Is Malfoy really that strong? Even Harry couldn't beat him? If you knew the Malfoy family better, you wouldn't ask that. The boy who lived isn't as powerful as everyone imagines. Maybe Malfoy's just stronger. Who knows? During lunch, students eagerly debated the duel between Malfoy and Potter. Dark curses, the outcome, the injuries, and all the surrounding drama. The Slytherins were thrilled, spreading the news and openly praising Malfoy. Their prefect, Gemma Farley, even encouraged younger students to write letters about the story. The boy who lived? The mysterious nemesis? The destined White Wizard King? No matter the titles Harry had earned, none could outweigh the impact of a real defeat. His reputation in the wizarding world was visibly fading. Malfoy, dressed impeccably in his tailored robes, sat at the table with effortless grace. There was no arrogance in his eyes, not even when senior students bowed to him in admiration. He simply gave a slight nod in return. Occasionally, he raised his drink in a subtle salute, sipping lightly while exchanging silent acknowledgments with the leaders of other groups, an unspoken pact of mutual respect. Truly a Slytherin through and through, Malfoy was taking full advantage of every opportunity the moment offered. The professors observed from the staff table like spectators on the far bank of a river, some anxious, others indifferent. Voldemort sipped his soup silently, growing increasingly impressed by Lucius Malfoy. Not only had he executed his orders flawlessly, but he also disrupted Dumbledore's focus and divided his attention. Even more remarkable, he had begun undermining the boy who live's reputation, something Voldemort himself had never dared attempt. Not because he lacked the will, but because he feared the consequences. He knew how vital Harry Potter was to Dumbledore. To protect Harry's reputation, Dumbledore had even reserved the chance to kill Voldemort for the boy himself. 17 years old, destined to face the Dark Lord. After Voldemort's death, Harry's glory would surely shine across the entire wizarding world. If only he had such a fate. Dumbledore, you're far too biased. I wanted to be the Dark Lord too, yet you handed everything to Harry. Harry's all right? Flitwick glanced toward Malfoy, whose expression remained unreadable, then turned to his student. He's fine. It's a dark curse, but what damage can an 11-year-old really do? Voldemort set down his spoon. Then why did you get involved? Flitwick's tone blended concern with mild disapproval. We Ravenclaws value wisdom, not reckless courage like the lions or cunning like the snakes. Keep your distance from them. I'm innocent, Headmaster. Voldemort forced a wry smile. I helped Hermione with a paper, so she knew my office. In that moment, she didn't know who else to turn to, so she came to me. Oh, Hermione, huh? Flitwick relaxed. She's a good kid, definitely belongs in Ravenclaw. She regretted it afterward, but what's done is done. Nothing can be changed, right? Voldemort shrugged, glancing at Hermione. The girl met his eyes and flashed a goofy, oddly endearing grin. Though it can't be changed, we must pass on wisdom. If Hermione needs help, you must assist her, Flitwick said seriously. No good student should be neglected. As you command, respected Headmaster. Voldemort smiled at Hermione and teased his own headmaster lightly. Flitwick shot him a disapproving glare, but knowing this student was now a professor, teaching 2 courses even, he let it slide. Just don't cause trouble. Act like a proper Ravenclaw. Kilo, you're not a griffin, Flitwick added, cracking a rare joke. Of course, Headmaster, Voldemort replied, unsure how to respond. With a resigned sigh, he decided to quietly observe, or rather, drink his soup. Chapter 72, Harnessing Muggle Wisdom. Good people bear heavy burdens. Bad ones scramble for scraps. Voldemort found it difficult to consider himself good. After all, with so many lives on his hands, claiming that title would be a sham. Instead, he scavenged, schemed, and found some small pleasure in it. You should have a name. Dementors is just a collective term, but you're unique. In the training ground, Voldemort spoke to the Dementor that had shown restraint. Hoo-woo! After days of communication, this particular Dementor had learned to express itself. Sound meant consent, silence meant refusal. How about Hodor, a dark god from myths, also blind, who killed the god of light, Bod, who brought joy? He seems a lot like you. Woo-woo! As long as you like it. No need to reply. I don't want to smell decay again, Voldemort said, pulling out his wand. I need to lose some happiness. Feed, but don't overdo it. He cast the Legilimens' curse, and the little happiness he had left was drawn away again. Snap! Breaking the connection, Voldemort collapsed onto the ground. The sensation was deeply unpleasant. "Hey, Kilo, you can't keep going like this. The students are already complaining," Hagrid said, concern evident in his gaze. "The forbidden book I'm reading requires this. Don't worry, Hagrid, I'll finish soon," Voldemort replied, standing without looking back as he left the training ground. Several Lumos charms floated overhead as Voldemort squinted at the book. At the top of the left page, repairing the injured brain. The text described a ruthless man named Matthias who forced his companion to repeatedly cast the Cruciatus curse on himself until his brain was damaged. Memory gaps and chaotic thoughts emerged. Then came the restorative spells, excruciating pain like needles piercing the skull and violently stirring the brain. Once the pain crossed a threshold, the subject passed out. Experiencing this firsthand, Voldemort too blacked out. When he awoke, half an hour had passed, the longest session he'd endured with the book so far. "Can't say it was all for nothing," he mumbled, flipping the page. "But as the book says, no effect, no insight." The next page, repairing a fragmented soul. Eagerly reading, Voldemort had to tip his hat to Matthias. This guy had figured out how to turn Horcruxes into a fragmented soul. Even Dumbledore likely never imagined this book contained methods for making Horcruxes, not fully detailed, but enough to reveal their existence. After finishing the left page, Voldemort glanced at the illustration on the right, and then his consciousness entered the painting. The author's friend began casting restorative spells on him. Though his soul trembled, any signs of recovery were faint and fleeting. The left page recorded Matthias's reflections. He claimed he felt no real restoration of the soul, but Voldemort had recently undergone soul fusion, the merging of Linzuo's soul with his own remnants a few months earlier. In that moment, he felt genuine insight. It became clear the soul can recover, though only slightly. He also noticed that while the soul was being repaired, the familiar book on the table trembled subtly. After another long unconsciousness, Voldemort awoke and eagerly scanned the last page. Open quote, "The cruel truth, I failed. A shattered soul and broken mind left me barely able to live normally. Day and night I lived with my Horcrux, realizing it seemed to desire life more than I did. I must face my tragic remaining years and find a way to destroy the Horcrux. I can see its madness. Believe me, it was once part of me. I used the killing curse on it. Effective, but not fatal. Though still alive, it has become a fool. Still, I must admit, it is a useful magical material. Unable to grasp the essence of this spell myself, I recorded all related memories in this book. I hope future readers can feel what I experienced and discover the root of this restorative magic. I no longer hope to grow taller. My soul is fragmented, my mind impaired. I am unworthy of Alice. The Secret of Time is the name I gave this book. Though I struggle to believe it, this spell contains the secret of time. My broken Horcrux, in essence, still has a soul. It will wait within the flow of time for a reader capable of uncovering the true secret. Thus I named it so, hoping successors can unravel the genuine mystery. Lastly, if this spell truly can solve the height issue, I ask you to make it public, for my family has long suffered from this curse. Please forgive me for using a pseudonym. Having studied and practiced extensive dark magic, I am unwilling to bring shame upon my family. That's all. Wishing you all the best." Close quote. The book ended there, yet Voldemort furrowed his brow. According to the text, Matthias had not actually uncovered the secret to the restoration curse. He had merely used his Horcrux, fragmented as it was, to store his memories so that future readers could experience everything he had and perhaps gain insight. If insight existed, aside from the final moment when Voldemort felt his soul being healed, there was little concrete revelation before that. "Maybe I need to experience it a few more times," Voldemort muttered, returning his gaze to the page titled Restoration of the Broken Soul. The night slowly gave way to dawn. From that day on, Voldemort devoted all his energy to the final trial, postponing the students' detentions. "I'm working on a research project right now. I'll start the detentions once it's done. No, Professor McGonagall. I really don't want to interrupt this study," he told her. Even after more than 10 days immersed in the book, no profound understanding had emerged, only guesses, none of which he could confirm. At one point, he considered consulting Dumbledore, but after careful thought, he abandoned the idea. Given the book's Horcrux content, caution was necessary. Several days later, increasingly irritable, Voldemort admitted his own limitations. I lack extraordinary wisdom and do not possess the innate gift lingering in Voldemort's remnant soul. Looks like I'll have to find a new path. That weekend, he met with Boggis at Old Trafford Stadium. A physicist, or any other kind of scholar, with truly high intelligence, Voldemort said between watching the match. Have them study this material, no matter how absurd it sounds. I want the most accurate hypotheses they can produce. When wisdom falls short, money can compensate. He resolved to leverage Muggle intelligence through financial power. He compiled all the book's details into a notebook and drafted a theory. Assuming magic exists, what if there is a spell that repairs broken things? Whether it was possible was unknown. This was purely an experiment. While Voldemort watched the game, Boggis skimmed through the book once and stared wide-eyed in disbelief. He couldn't grasp Voldemort's intent. This is utterly ridiculous. A sharp glare from Voldemort silenced him. I'll do my best, but how much funding are you allocating? Boggis asked. 30 million pounds. That should suffice, but if not, I'll call a meeting with finance and allocate more, Voldemort replied firmly. Months of wizarding research had yielded almost no progress, making him anxious. Young Voldemort hadn't been this foolish. He had to admit he lacked talent and wisdom, left only with clever scheming. I understand, sir. I'll assemble the research team as fast as possible and produce results, Boggis promised. The sooner the better. Don't disappoint me. After speaking, Voldemort rose to leave, but Boggis stopped him. Sir, there's news just in. Voldemort's eyes lit up. His scheming heart surged. The truth was, everyone had talent. His just wasn't in magic. Long ago, I often wondered what it would be like to involve brilliant scientists in magical research. Today, that dream finally came true in this book. My fantasy from 15 years ago realized. So happy. Fate must have intricate gears, or else things wouldn't have unfolded so perfectly. Voldemort knew that on the night before Halloween, trolls would riot. After all, he was a time traveler. But with heavy coursework, studies from forbidden books, and troll hunts, everything was tangled together. A week after asking Boggis to set up the research lab, and prompted by McGonagall, he ventured into the Forbidden Forest to find trolls. Yet, of course, chaos still happened. This time, Ron had made Hermione cry for reasons different from what Voldemort remembered. Before, it had been Ron's jealousy of Hermione's academic talent that made him lash out, which Hermione overheard, leaving her in tears. Now, it was jealousy over Hermione's closeness with Harry. Since the duel incident, Harry had been profoundly grateful to Hermione, who had helped him find the headmaster despite her injury and had continued to support him. Harry's days had been difficult. While he had once endured admiring glances, now the looks were strange and uncomfortable. The brilliant Miss Know-It-All had helped him tremendously, strengthening their bond, and Ron's jealousy had grown because of it. So, on the eve of Halloween, he snapped at Hermione, calling her arrogant, friendless, clinging only to the savior's leg. Hermione had never heard such vicious words. She froze, skipped class for the first time, and by dinner was still crying alone in the bathroom. Meanwhile, oblivious to fate, Voldemort marched on cheerfully, driving the troll ahead with light steps. He had deliberately avoided the date mentioned in the book, which made him feel safe. The book had chosen Halloween Eve because that night, students would gather for the feast in the dining hall. Empty corridors were perfect for Professor Krum to herd the troll to the 4th floor. To avoid the feast, Voldemort ignored McGonagall's complaints and insisted on moving the troll early. McGonagall, in turn, had to find a reason to keep students together at the feast. Voldemort tapped his foot happily and entered the empty castle, even in the mood to sing, "Buddy, you're a boy. Make a big noise." A string of curses abruptly interrupted his humming. The sense of an impending spell made Voldemort instantly flustered. "Spell stop! Spell stop! Spell stop!" He quickly left a string of counterspells on his bracelet and looked cautiously left and right. The corridor was empty, thanks to his insistence. Then, Krum's spirit began to steal the scene. A silent campus lacking proper defenses. I know how to deal with that 3-headed dog. My master needs the Philosopher's Stone. Voldemort, displaced in his own soul, helplessly watched the meddling Krum. Helpless, but not panicked. All we need is to release the troll. What a perfect idea. After a moment, Krum cast a spell on the troll, which had been well behaved until now. It instantly flew into a rage, charging toward the girls' bathroom nearby. Voldemort only then noticed, but he didn't think Hermione was still inside. Krum staggered off to put on an act, then bang! The first bead on Voldemort's bracelet exploded, activating the counterspell. Krum immediately snapped back to reason. "Oh, Master, what have I done? Is there any way to fix this?" Before Krum could finish, Voldemort cut him off. "Shut up, Krum. Listen carefully." Calmly, Voldemort said, "Use the Patronus to notify Professor McGonagall. Tell her there's been an accident and the students need to stay longer in the dining hall. The accident will be resolved quickly." He didn't rush to control his body. He didn't know how to cast Patronus, and even if he did, it wouldn't be a hawk. A hawk shot swiftly from his wand, flew to the dining hall, paused briefly, then returned. Seeing the Patronus return, Voldemort regained control of his body. He wasn't worried. It was just a troll. If it hadn't destroyed the bathroom door, he wouldn't have even informed McGonagall. Just as he stepped toward the bathroom, a scream came from inside, making him stop. "Who's there?" he called loudly. "It's me, Professor! There's a troll here!" Hermione's voice trembled with fear and tears. Voldemort couldn't make sense of what was happening, but he had to act. Unconscious, he rushed in, wand buzzing, pouring in more power. Trolls had magical resistance. Whoosh! Magic whipped through the air, striking the troll holding a stick and moving toward Hermione. Bang! The magical blast exploded. The troll turned to look at Voldemort, eyes glazed, then collapsed with a crash. Cough! Cough! Coughing from the dust, Voldemort waved his wand to clear the air and stepped closer to Hermione. "A troll? Just a little trouble, right?" he said soothingly. Hermione shifted her terrified gaze from the fallen troll to him, eyes wide and still dazed. "Have some chocolate. It'll calm you down." Voldemort forced a smile. Though he felt fate was mocking him, he'd planned everything perfectly, yet it all seemed to reset to square one. "Oh, thank you, Professor. Thank you. Wah!" Hermione suddenly burst into tears again, throwing herself into Voldemort's arms and clinging tightly. The little one was sniffling so hard that snot dripped down his robe. "Damn my elegant robes," he thought painfully. "Sorry, Professor. Thank you. I'm feeling much better now." Finally, the know-it-all girl calmed down, released him, and shyly lowered her head. "Wipe it off, will you? Next time you come crying to me, please don't leave snot all over me." Voldemort handed her a handkerchief and used magic to clean the rest off himself. Then he cast a repair spell on the shattered bathroom. "I need to go to the 4th floor, the place where you saw the 3-headed dog. Want to come with me?" he asked. "See, could I?" Hermione still looked embarrassed, probably from the snot incident. "Of course, if you went into the dining hall now, everyone would stare. It would be really uncomfortable." Voldemort waved his wand, levitating the giant troll. "You can also go back to the common room or your dormitory, your choice." Hermione hardly hesitated. She immediately chose to accompany him, genuinely liking the dark arts professor, but strictly as a student to teacher. "So, Ron insulted you in front of everyone?" Voldemort realized the plot was drifting off course. The iron triangle from the stories wouldn't hold. Harry and the others had lost their chance to save Hermione. Now Harry and Hermione were just friends. That kind of friendship was fine. He wasn't interested in little girls anyway. But if she grew up as beautifully as in the stories, Voldemort's imagination ran wild. Aside from lacking extraordinary magical talent, he considered himself quite capable in other areas, especially when it came to manipulating young girls. "I don't know why, Professor. I didn't offend him." The know-it-all pouted, clearly feeling wronged. "If I say I understand you, you might not believe me. But from the perspective of a Muggle-born witch, maybe you will." Voldemort smirked. "Muggle-born?" She widened her eyes, thinking of the question, but too shy to speak. "Discrimination, Hermione. There's nothing you can't talk about," he said without hesitation. "But we're Gryffindor. How could we? Does Harry hate you?" "No." "Does Seamus Finnegan hate you?" Probably not." "I don't think I need to give more examples. Hermione, coming from the Muggle world, it's hard for anyone to truly despise you." Voldemort shrugged. "If this were the Muggle world and you were bullied, it wouldn't hurt this much. You could fight back. But in an unfamiliar environment..." He trailed off, but Hermione understood. She lowered her head painfully, knowing the root of it all brought no comfort. What should I do, Professor? She asked softly. There's nothing you can do, Hermione. This is unchangeable, Voldemort said sadly. Strange places make us lonely, but life never stops moving just because we do. Both of their fused souls had experienced this unfamiliar feeling. Voldemort entering the magical world and Lin Zuo as a time traveler, both sharing that sense of strangeness. But we can still do something about it, right? Hermione lifted her head bravely. The most precious thing about people is that even after seeing through the nature of life, they still love it. That's what Roman Roland said. Of course, you can channel that energy into magic. In fact, we Muggle-born wizards often have a better understanding of magic, from a different perspective at least, Voldemort said, watching her nod thoughtfully. Besides, I suspect the wizarding world has entered what's called the Tasmania effect. They desperately need people like us. The Tasmania? Professor, I don't quite understand that effect, Hermione said, cheeks flushing, shy about her ignorance but eager to learn. The Tasmania effect comes from a remote island in the southern hemisphere. Humans were discovered there in the 16th or 17th century. I can't recall the exact date. Voldemort explained, guiding the troll with his wand. Hermione listened attentively. When they were found, they didn't even have primitive clothing and didn't know how to fish. But archaeological findings show they once had advanced hunting and fishing skills. An isolated environment led to isolated thinking. They regressed, losing the techniques they once mastered, let alone advancing civilization. Could the wizarding world regress like that? Hermione asked, surprised. I don't know. That requires deeper knowledge and extensive investigation, Voldemort replied carefully. Actually, the wizarding world isn't a true island. Wizards from several countries still communicate. But the wizarding world as a whole is isolated, isn't it? Hermione looked up, eyes bright with curiosity, forgetting her earlier troubles. We're still under this effect. Muggle-born wizards are a kind of breach, though a small one. How it all works exactly? I don't know. Hermione, it would require massive data to determine. Voldemort slowed before the corner. First, master your magic. After graduation, study at a Muggle university. I think that would be very... Ah! Ah! Two startled cries rang out, followed by the sound of someone falling. Voldemort shifted the troll's body upward and saw Harry and Ron sitting on the ground, staring at the troll in terror. What are you two doing here? He asked, surprised. We came looking for Hermione. We heard something happen in the castle, so... Harry recovered faster and spoke first, trying to explain. Voldemort glanced at Hermione. Whether these two children were forgiven was up to her, as the one involved. Sorry, Hermione, what I said earlier, I went too far. I didn't mean it. Ron stammered, at least offering an apology. I forgive you, and I thank you both, Hermione replied, though her expression showed little warmth. Well... Ron stumbled for words, and Voldemort didn't want to linger watching three kids exchange feelings in front of him. All right, your classmates are here. Go back with them. I have other matters to attend to. With that, Voldemort sent the trolls soaring above the boys' heads, then strode toward the fourth-floor corridor. I'm coming with you, Professor. I want to learn. I've picked up a lot, Hermione said, hurrying after him, completely ignoring the two on the floor. If you talk to any 30-year-old, you'll learn something, even if they're a drunkard, Voldemort said with a smile. Professor, can we come too? Harry and Ron ran up to ask. Voldemort noticed Hermione frowning, but didn't mind. Since they had already been there, what was there left to hide? Of course, if you want, Voldemort shrugged indifferently. So the group became 4. Voldemort spoke little, while Hermione kept asking questions, mostly about Muggle topics. Harry struggled to follow. After all, he'd been raised by his aunt's family and had little experience with this line of thinking. Ron was even more lost. Maybe his father could banter with Voldemort, but he couldn't. They reached the familiar corridor and spotted the door in the distance. How do we get past this? Hermione asked, puzzled. Child, first you must understand that you are a wizard, Voldemort said, drawing his wand. But before he could cast a spell, the door suddenly swung open from the inside. It was the great bat, scowling and limping, staring at the 4 in surprise. Kirk, I came here too. The bat hesitated, noticing the strange gleam in Voldemort's eyes. But would Voldemort listen? Sorry, I'm just an actor, Voldemort thought, excited. Divine justice had arrived. Traitor Snape, today is your day. Without hesitation, Voldemort swung his wand, sending the troll crashing towards Snape. I never expected it would be you, Snape. You've betrayed the trust Headmaster Dumbledore placed in you.